The amount of time it saves us is incredible. We're able to cut down so much. There's definitely a cost savings because you're not paying somebody for as much time, but we are paying for more softwares and memberships and stuff like that to do it. But it's dramatic, right? Because if you can increase your ability to create.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, listener, it's Adam Adams. I'm with Jeremy Slate again, and we've talked a little bit about his podcast before. It's the Jeremy Ryan Slate Show. You can find that in the show notes. His company is Command Your Brand. One of his companies does a bunch of editing for you. The other company gets you booked on other podcasts. In the last episode, that was our first episode with him, and we talked about some audio things that can support you to edit your audio a lot faster and smoother, to just make sure you have clean audio and you sound professional. On this episode, we're talking about some video things and a little bit about Jeremy's process, because he's figured out a process that makes it a little bit faster and streamlined. And that does something that helps him either save 80% of his cost or at least 80% of his time. And so I think you'll be interested in that. Let's jump into this episode, the second one with Jeremy Slate. Jeremy, hey, thanks for jumping on another episode. We're talking about video. What is Autopod? Sorry, I said it wrong. Yeah. Autopod.
So Autopod, it's a plugin for Adobe Premiere Pro. So you have to have access to the Creative Cloud suite of products. I think, once again, it's like $55 a month or something like that to have access. Premiere Pro or Autopod is actually a plugin. So you sign up for this product. I think it's like $29 a month or something. So you do have to pay for it monthly to have access. But then it actually comes into your Premiere Pro and it will automatically edit a podcast episode for you. And there's a couple different types of edits that it'll do. Like if you're doing a solo podcast, it'll do a jump cut edit for you of like basically taking your interview and taking all the gaps, or your solo piece and taking all the gaps and stuff like that out of it and cut it down, which is really nice. Or the way that we use it, which is taking an interview and basically turning a virtually done interview into a 3-camera edit. So what I mean by that is you have a track of the host, a track of the guest, and a track of the host and guest side by side. And those of you out there that use Zoom, you've probably seen this as it switches between people. This is a lot better than Zoom has ever been. Like it actually, the final product is very similar to like what a television style recording would be. And the way it works is you bring your 3 files. You don't have to use 3, but once again, that's how we do it. I think it looks better. You bring your 3 files in. They all have to be cut to the same length, so and end on the same frame. So what we'll do is cut off the last couple seconds to make sure they're all equal in length, and then we'll just snap on the outro. We use the same outro for every single episode. Then you run Autopod, and in about 45 to 60 seconds, it will edit your entire video. And it will pop out a video where it's basically cutting from who's ever speaking and showing the guest side by side. Is a really, really cool effect, and it just saves you so much time.
So you take the video file of your guest as a separate track. Then you take your video file of both of you.
Yep.
And you also take the video file of yourself.
Yes.
You give these 3 video files to Autopod, which is a plugin for Adobe Premiere Pro. And I think that you said in the last episode we did with you, that if you pay for Adobe Enhance, is it the same upgrade, like $57 per user?
Yeah, it's the exact
So
same
if you
membership.
do that, you get both of these automatically.
Yeah, Adobe.
Right, so
I think there's like 50 different softwares you get if you pay them this $57 a month. So it's very worth it, like for what you get for that.
Perfect. And so you give these 3 files to Adobe Autopod, and then you say, go to work. And in 60 seconds, instead of 9 hours, in 60 seconds, it has a fully rendered, edited, ready to go video that shows me when I'm talking, shows you when you're talking, and every now and again shows both of us.
That's correct.
Okay. And Additionally, if we say ums and uhs a lot, we have like filler words, filler phrases. Does it do anything with that?
It doesn't do anything with that because if you go earlier in our process, I use a software called Riverside FM for all of our recordings.
Okay.
So Riverside.fm will make that side-by-side video for us in addition to the solo tracks of each. And in their editing suite, you can actually, I don't know if you've used Riverside, but it's a pretty amazing product. It'll remove the ums and ahs. And also, they have a new release they just did recently where, let's say you say the wrong word, you can actually go into the transcript, change the word, and it'll change your mouth movement to match the word. And you would think
and
it looks
your voice
and your voice. It'll make it.
This is Riverside.
Riverside, and it's you don't want to use it for more than 1 to 2 words because if it's more than that, it gets a little weird. But if you use it for like one word, it is not noticeable. It's like you can go in and solve it just by typing into the transcript.
Okay, cool. That is, I mean, super cool.
As you know, like capturing your stuff in the right way is the number one thing that makes every process after easier.
So with me, I use Zoom.
Okay.
And I think I'm recording 3 audio tracks, but I don't know if I'm recording 3 different video tracks. It might just be
You're
one.
likely not. So like, because in Zoom, it's only going to record like a video of both. So and for me, I always want a full frame video, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I have to interview the guest on Zoom, because sometimes it does happen, right? Like I'll have somebody that's low tech or whatever, and you got to use Zoom. What I'll do is I'll pin their video and only record them on Zoom. And then I'll actually record a solo track of myself in Riverside because I still want to have those full frame videos for when we put together a final piece.
Okay. So I'm sure that there's ways to do this if you didn't use Riverside, but I don't know how. Can you think of a way that you could use this same software if you weren't using Riverside to begin with?
So the only thing we would need to handle is where you're getting your video tracks from. So like really you would have to be using something like Riverside or Squadcast or Zencaster. It really wouldn't work as well with Zoom unless you're doing it like you put it on grid view and you're just doing a guest and host side by side. But once again, you're going to be missing those solo track videos. So to me, I think to really have the best experience, you need to be recording in something like, Riverside or Zencaster or Squadcast because they all do solo track editing. As far as I know, because once again, I don't use Zoom as much as I used to. It may have changed, but as far as I know, they don't do solo tracks at the moment.
Okay. What if we tried to find a way where we get the recording from you and me today, and you're on one side and I'm on the other side?
Yeah.
Then we just zoom in to one person's video, try to find a way to just copy that. We zoom into the other person's video, copy that, and then give the third one. Would we then be able to do it working with Autopod?
The problem you're going to have, because I've actually tried this, the problem you're going to have is your resolution on your video is, because you're zooming in, is going to get terrible. So then you're going to need, there's other softwares out there you can do this, but they're crazy expensive. You're going to need a software to upscale the resolution in your video. So it's honestly just cheaper to record in Riverside or Squadcast or one of those.
Okay, great. Thank you. So
it's gonna pixelate if you zoom it in like that, and you're just gonna be like, oh man, I should have just kept it small.
So if you were editing my show and I was using Zoom, and I am using Zoom, if you are editing my show and I come to you as a client and I want you to do something like this with a video, do you tell me, hey, before we start working together, you got to start using a different program when you record? Or
we do that. We insist on what software we use because we want to guarantee the output. Okay. If I can't guarantee the input, I can't guarantee the output.
Okay. If I want to imitate this, if I want to copy this, if I want to do the same thing, then I'm probably going to tell our clients, hey, we can do all of these cool things for you. And when we do that, you either have to be on Riverside or I think you said Squadcast.
Yeah, and Zencaster does the same thing. Now, here's the beautiful thing about it, though. Here's the beautiful thing about it is Zoom records over the internet. These other softwares actually record on the device and then upload to the cloud. So your video and audio quality are automatically going to be higher resolution. And you don't have to have a client like send you files too, because you would just log into the Riverside or Squadcast or whatever and download them.
I have a question on that. It's important because
Yeah.
you know those the four ladies that I mentioned to you earlier, and maybe it was the last episode. They were using, I believe, Riverside.
Okay.
And one of them ended up coming out of the video.
What do you mean?
So I think that they either had a meeting or an internet glitch.
Mm-hmm.
So where they stopped recording while the other three were still recording. And what ended up happening is her audio and video that was at 99% ready to go the whole time. Like, you know how with Riverside?
Yeah, it's progressively uploading. Yeah.
Yeah. Disappeared completely. Is there, do you know how you can avoid something like that, especially when you're four busy people?
Well, so what I would say, and the way to do this is if somebody's going to leave, you would just quickly stop and start the conversation, but you don't have everyone leave the recording studio. You just have that person leave once and your hang up's going to be maybe 30 seconds. So to me, I would do it that way. And if you ever have problems in a recording room, the thing I've found is never leave the recording room as the host, because if you do, then it creates a separate track and creates all these other issues. So you want to stay in the same recording room. So the host staying in is the most important part.
Okay. Perfect.
And I think you can have up to, the last I checked, it was up to 5 people on at once. It might be more now. They've made so many, the reason I keep sticking with Riverside is they've made so many improvements, and they seem to be doing that. It's been pretty cool.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about this other, it's called Video, but it's spelled like VID-yo, Video.
Yeah, I think somebody else had the name and they tried to grab it, and that's why they ended up with that.
That's funny. Well, this one automatically, how do you use this? What is it for? You said you strips like little short sound bites or video bites.
So what we use it for is there's 2 different ways you can use it. You can actually take a link to any YouTube video, and it'll actually take the YouTube video and create shorts segments, which are the ones that are it's more like a chapter. So it's like an 5 to 8 or 10 minute segment of something. And that's the thing that this one does that an Opus Clips or something like that doesn't do. So we'll actually use it to make some of our long form segments for YouTube. But you can put a link to a YouTube video in or upload your own file. So we're typically uploading our own file if it's our show. If it's shows I was on that I want to make clips of so I can promote that show, we'll take the link to the YouTube video and we'll put that in so we can make some clips so we can promote it. And it's really, really useful because you can create your own templates in it. You can use their templates. And it has this feature, the heck is it called? It's called Cut Magic, because a lot of times, let's say you're doing one that's using multiple cameras. If you're trying to do it as a short, you're going to lose the focus on the right person in the short. So what this Cut Magic does is it lets you create cuts in the short so you can keep it on the correct camera the whole time. It's very, very cool what it enables you to do.
Would you mind explaining more of how that works and kind of what is the end result? Because I don't think I am following you all the way. So maybe the listener isn't either.
So you put in a video file. It can either be from a link to a YouTube video or your own video file, and it'll actually define what all the shorts are or reels or whatever it might be. YouTube, the term is shorts. Instagram, the term is reels. But those videos that are under 60 seconds, the AI will actually define what are the best ones. It'll score them out of 100. And then you can actually go in and add any B-roll you want to add, which it has access to a B-roll library. You can add any graphics to it. You can put your own templates on it or just use their templates. And it actually allows you to make all those clips very easily. There's 2 types of clips. As I mentioned, there's that short or reel type of clip. And then there's kind of those longer form, horizontal segments you can use for YouTube or something like that.
Okay. So are you saying that this software, I'm going to call it video.ai, or I don't know if that's exactly how it's pronounced. It has the ability to either create a vertical video or a horizontal video?
Correct, which is what a lot of the other softwares, the most popular one I think out there is Opus Clips. Okay. A lot of them do the vertical, but most of them don't do the horizontal. And for me, since we do a lot of 8 to 10 minute segments on our YouTube channel, I really want those horizontal videos, but we don't want to have to go edit those horizontal videos.
I love it. And it pulls out a number of clips for you. And I'm wondering, can I say for us, we have clients who they want a 60-second or less video. And they want one that's between 1 to 2 minutes. And they want one that's about 5 minutes, one that is between 8 to 10 minutes. It goes crazy. And then they want a full length video.
Right.
They're like, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want. And they pay a little extra per each video that we pull out.
Yeah.
If they're coming to you here, can I specifically say, I want one that's under 60 seconds, one that's between 60 to 120 seconds, one that's, right around 5 minutes, one that's over 8 minutes, no more than 10. And you just tell that to video.ai and it will do all of that for you, or is it do something different?
So what it's going to do is it's going to define a whole list of clips that are under 60 seconds. Now, what you can do is you can go in and edit these and lengthen them. You have the ability to make them longer. So if you wanted to handle that 120 or whatever it might be, you could do it that way. Then when it's making kind of the segment or chapter type videos, those are all different sizes, right? So like some might be 5 minutes, some might be 4 minutes, some might be 10 minutes. But once again, you can go in there just with a slider, adjust the length of time of that particular video. You can't tell it in the input what you want, but you can handle it at the output, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it might generate something that is 4 minutes, but your client said that they want it to be 6 minutes. So you find a way to add a little bit more.
Yeah, you would just basically drag it out until you find a place in the transcript that you like to actually have it start or end, whichever, it might make more sense to have it start earlier, have it end later. And you could do it that way.
All right. Let's transition, but first a quick word from our sponsor. And I want to transition to your process, how you do it, what you do. If I was your client right now, I'm onboarding with you. How would you say you do this, then this, and this? These are the things that happen. We'll be right back. Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, GrowYourShow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show. We're back with Jeremy Ryan Slate. As a reminder, the link to his company is in the show notes. The link to his website, any social media that he wants you to have is down in the show notes. His podcast, The Jeremy Ryan Slate Show, down in the podcast. Feel free to follow him, join him. If you give him a rating review, let him know that you heard from him here. I have a coach who helped me get my six-pack, and you guys have probably heard me talk a little bit about that. He's like, you need to talk with this guy named Jeremy. He's amazing. I'm like, yeah, randomly enough, I just started talking with him, and I'm going to have him on my show for a couple of episodes. So we're getting into Jeremy's process. How does he do the things that he does? And what do you need in order to do it? So if I'm a client, if you're a client, we're onboarding with him now, how does it go?
So are you looking from the guest side or from the video editing side?
Oh, from video editing. I know
okay, cool.
Your main company helps people guest on podcasts, but you do video editing as well and audio editing. So let's go. So for us, typically what we're going to do is we're going to have a call with you first to align everything. We put together a content calendar that's a joint content calendar. So we're managing it with you. So everybody's on the same page. We're going to have like what the episode days are set up. And then we're going to know basically what your recording schedule is so that we're a full week and a half to 2 weeks ahead on recordings because, hey, life happens. You want to make sure that that's all ready to go. But in terms of like what our actual editing process looks like after that, the first thing we're doing is all of our interviews are done in Riverside.fm because, like I said, your input has to be a certain way so that I can guarantee an output. And out of that, we're getting a couple different tracks. We're getting a solo track of the guest, a solo track of the host, and then we'll actually create a side-by-side of the guest and host in Riverside. We'll take those 3 files, move them over to Premiere Pro, where we actually have a plugin that is called Auphonic. We will run that plugin where we'll edit down our video in about 60 seconds to a fully edited file.
We'll add in any intros, outros, any ads for that episode, any overlay graphics, because sometimes you'll get overlay graphics. And then we'll pop that out as just a WAV file first, because we want to take the audio. So we'll take that audio
while you're still in Premiere Pro.
While we're still in Premiere Pro, we will export an audio file first, and we're going to actually take and mute all of our tracks in Premiere Pro. And then we're going to take that file, that WAV file, upload it to Auphonic. Auphonic's going to level it, remove any background noise, and just spit out a really great MP3 file. Now, the important thing to think about is you want your MP3 file to be in mono, not in stereo, because a lot of people don't always have two earbuds in when they're listening, and that could create a problem for people hearing. We'll take that file now, we'll bring it over to Premiere Pro, and we'll snap that in as the audio for the entire episode. And then we'll export from Premiere Pro a usually 1080p MP4 file, and that's our podcast episode. The MP3 file we've already created, that's our audio podcast episode. From there, we're going to be running through a software called, after we've uploaded to YouTube, we're going to be running through a software called Taja.ai, and that's going to write the title for us, write the description for us, define all the chapters in the video. Yeah.
May I slow you down to make sure that I can repeat it back after
you're go for
done?
it.
The first thing was recording in Riverside. The second thing was going to Premiere Pro and using which software first?
Autopod.
I wrote it down wrong. That was the thing. I wrote Auphonic first.
Auphonic's after.
Once we do the Autopod to get the fully rendered 3 things video, then you go and use Auphonic. And what do you do? And that's to you basically take the audio and put it into Auphonic separately.
Correct.
And then later you'll mute the videos, the MP4's sound. Correct. And you'll match it up with the MP3 sound.
Yes.
And edit it.
And since the file size is the exact same length, it's like literally you're done as soon as you put it in.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not like you're like scrolling back and forth, trying to hope you get the right sound bars. Like, no, since the files, that's why we use the Premiere Pro file, because you don't have a problem of sliding the audio back and forth. It's going to match up exactly.
Okay. So in step 2, that takes 45, 60 seconds.
Yep.
Unless you have to do overlay graphics.
Yeah, we usually do that at the end because it doesn't matter as much to get in the audio, right? Because our first thing is trying to get audio that's leveled, but we'll add graphics and stuff later on.
Okay, perfect. So step 3 is Auphonic.
Yep.
And where do you go after that?
So then that file then becomes our podcast audio. So we're going to take that to our podcast host on one part of it. The other part, we're going to take that audio and go back to our video and snap it into our video. So now we have a fully...
I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Or I basically we missed something.
Okay.
Because I think is it before you go to Auphonic or after, where you put in your intro, your outro, any advertisements?
Yeah, we're going to do that first. And then once that's done, we're going to split out a fully done podcast episode, except for graphics, because graphics don't matter to the audio. And then we're going to upload that WAV file that we get out of Premiere Pro to Auphonic. Then the MP3 that Auphonic spits out is going to go right to our podcast host, and it's going to go back into Premiere Pro. So we now have a fully edited and sounding good audio file.
I'm typing Premiere Pro. So I have 5 steps right now.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Record on Riverside.
Yep.
Oh, you know what? There probably should be a second step right after that, I think. Okay. So first, record on Riverside. Second, get with Riverside's help. Get rid of like all of the filler words.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then go bring it into Premiere Pro Autopod.
Correct.
And then put in your intro and outro, number 4.
Yep.
And then go to Auphonic.
Yep.
Number 5, step 5. And then step 6, bring it back to Premiere Pro and match the audio and video together.
Yep. And since the file's the exact same length, you're literally just going to have to drop it and drag it in. There's no sliding it back and forth and hoping the mouths match up.
Is there anything else that we missed?
No, that's it. Like you're just ready to export your MP4 file and you got a video.
Sweet. And you mentioned to me a while back before we decided to record that this saves you 80% of either time or money.
I'd say I don't know on the money side, it saves us quite a bit, but we are paying for some memberships, but the amount of time it saves us is incredible. because we're able to cut down so much. Like there's definitely a cost savings because you're not paying somebody for as much time, but we are paying for more softwares and memberships and stuff like that to do it. But it's dramatic, right? Because if you can increase your ability to create, you can increase your ability to output. And I think to me, that's more valuable than how much it's costing me.
Do you have approximately 5 more minutes to be with me?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Okay. With that in mind, let's go into my company's process because it might be just way too much.
Okay.
And I think it needs to be streamlined.
Okay.
So think of it like this. If we've got more than 30 employees and just more than 30 podcasts that we manage, essentially a person per one person's thing. And I've been thinking that we've got
we have typically one person's managing 4 podcasts.
So you've got one person,
and that's just on the editing person. It's like we have a person whose particular job is all the video optimization. We have another person whose job is all of the thumbnails, right? But we have we can have one person running 4 shows for just audio and video production.
All right, and I think I have 8 basically. So
I got some more shows, man. So
let's talk about or less staff. Which is
we like staff though. Trained staff are great, man. Worry about more shows.
There you go. There you go. I like it. So with us, we have that audio team, we have that video team, and after hearing everything that you shared, I feel like that can be one team.
Yeah.
After this, and maybe even 25% of the size that they are now.
Well, yeah, because you're going to need specialists, right? Like, let's say you're typically not going to have to use a tool like Enhance, but like, if you have some files that are terrible, you should have one person that's like your file repair person, right? Like, because you're going to have it every time and again. You don't want to bog down the other guy that's just kind of jamming on doing all the work, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense to keep them to be able to be streamlined and get more done and stay in your lane. And so then we've got a team that does just only creates assets. So they'll create an audiogram or videogram, which is usually 17 seconds or less, a video file that goes on social. And they'll create a promo image, which is basically a still image that promotes that episode, the specific episode. It probably has the picture of the guest. Like, for example, with you today, you'll be highlighted on there. And then they'll create a thumbnail for YouTube.
Yep.
So it's something interesting, exciting, that's more likely to get a click. And they'll create something called a quote card, which is when Jeremy Ryan Slate says something badass, they capture one of those things because you've said a lot. They capture one of those and then they'll put that up for you. And that team has about 1 per 10. So I think there's 3 people in that team.
Okay.
There used to be 4, but I think there's just 3 people in that team. It sounds like you have that as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how many people we have in editing. We have 3 people in editing. We have just 1 person that manages all the optimization. Optimization means writing titles, descriptions, and tags and stuff like that, because that's just so much easier. Design is a little bit heavier because, once again, as you said, like, design is a lot more in depth. But we've cut down a lot more on the production time to like what to do with those files, right? Like, and I think for me, like, if you can handle that, it's easier to make everything after it.
Yeah. When I was editing my own show, I had another show I sold back in the year 2000. When I was editing my own show, I usually would spend with recording one episode, which takes like an hour, and editing everything, I would spend about a good day or 2, but I would say about a day and a half of my own labor. So 12 hours of work with recording 1 hour and doing the rest of the stuff for 11. And within my team, they're still taking about that amount of time because we've got the audio editor doing it separately, the video editor doing separately, the graphics team, and then the other team that writes all the show notes and stuff like you were talking. And it's still like 12 hours of labor for one episode. How low have you gotten it with all of these processes?
So typically, and this varies because they're varying length of episodes, but if you're looking at like a 45-minute podcast episode, we've cut the editing, production, everything else maybe down to like 3 hours. So it's it's definitely a pretty substantial production between the editing, the design, and everything else.
Everything combined is 3 hours.
In about 3 hours, yeah.
So a quarter of the time. If, for example, it cost me $10,000 a week, you'd be saving me $7,500 a week, which I don't even know. That's what, $30,000 a month.
Hey, that's nice,
I could
man.
save if I.
Do I get a commission on that?
How about yes? Yeah, no, this is great. This absolutely could help me since I manage podcasts. And I think even just for the listener, if they want to edit their own and they don't want to spend 12 hours, but just 3, they could do everything if they use.
Well, I think that the cool thing is, Adam, like we're at a time in history where like, I think creating a high quality podcast is more attainable than it's ever been before. And I think it's like taking away that barrier from people just getting their voice out there is a big deal, right? Because I think you need to get out there, get in the conversation and really make some impact. And I think sometimes all these other things can get in the way, you know?
To the listener, first and foremost, go now and figure out how to streamline your podcast using some of these tools in this episode and the last one if you haven't heard that yet. Number 2, feel free to scroll down in the show notes, find Jeremy's contact information wherever he has you wanting you to go. Find him there, connect with him there, connect with his company, connect with his podcast. And I'll see you on the next episode.
You know, I really don't say this nearly enough. I don't mention this and I feel horrible because it's a great resource for you to be able to take your podcast to the next level. And it's simply a free resource that I don't need your email or anything. It's just a podcasting course that I created that is ended up putting in the very first 6 episodes of this podcast. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely going to want to just check out those first 6 episodes, see how they can help you improve your podcast, get in front of more people, and have a better result where you're making more money through the podcast, etc. So much can happen after you listen through episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if you haven't done it, go do it now. And by the way, if you're subscribed, you'll keep hearing more great content. So to those of you who are, I'll see you on the next episode.